There's a lot of ways that we build community in our classroom. The first and best way that I can say is that we focus on the theme of superheroes. That's what we started with this year. And so each student gets a week that they can be the super student of the week. And during that time, they get to share all about themselves. They bring in their favorite t-shirt, they bring in pictures about themselves and their family. They do a little questionnaire where they answer some questions about themselves. And then they get to share all about themselves with the whole class. One of the things that most of these children bring in is their favorite book. So then I get to read that with the class. And then that gives the rest of the class a sense of, oh, I like that story too. When we're finished with that, then the students do a writing about the super student. So they all get to write a page and tell about what they've learned about this student, and then they draw a picture. And I take all of those pictures and writings and I put them together in a book, similar to this one. This one was about me. I bind it up, and then I get to read the whole thing to the class. And so they can hear a little bit more, and I see how they really get to know each other and share their own likes and things. I would say the biggest things I want them to get, well, I want them to know their prayers, but I want the biggest thing to become friends with Jesus. I want them to know that Jesus is their friend. He is here for them always, in the good times and the bad. And so we have a prayer journal that we do usually once a week, where they get to have some quiet time where they can draw a picture, or they can write to Jesus anything, or create their own prayer with Jesus, and just share with him how things are going with them in their lives. And then they spend some quiet time just listening to his response. So that's one of the biggest things that we're learning how to do, is how we talk to Jesus, that's in prayer, and how we listen to his response. And then of course our virtue program here at Sacred Heart. Every day we spend time talking about our virtues. We talk about examples. What does that look like? What does that sound like? How are we being that virtue? How are we acting it? And if we're not following that virtue, how can we correct that? That's a huge part of their faith and growing. And then right now we're working on understanding the Mass, because next year they get to make their first Holy Communion. So understanding the Mass and what it is all about is very important. And I'm so impressed with how much they could share with me, you know, who the first reading was from, who was the gospel from, what were our responses, what is Father's vestments that he was wearing, what color, and why. So that's the heart of what I want the kids to get here in first grade as far as faith. Learning in first grade takes many different forms. We have, of course, teacher-led. That usually gets the lesson started. What do we need to know this week? What are we learning? What's the basic concept that we're covering? And then we'll break down with reading daily 5. So then they'll practice those concepts that were introduced in small groups as they go around the room. In math, they get to have station time. So again, they break down into small groups a little bit more often, I think, during the week. And then they have teacher time so that we can hone into those individual concepts that some of them need. Another way that learning is, now that we've got into a good routine, we can have the kids get up and maybe lead a little bit of those lessons. So they know how spelling works, so they might get up and lead the class in reviewing the spelling words, or reviewing the math facts, or reviewing, you know, anything else that we've gone over. We have quiet reading time for all of them to work on their level of reading, so they can practice that and take AR tests. They get the time to share with me and share with me what they've learned, what they are reading. A lot of them want to come up and read their stories and things to me. So that's pretty much what learning looks like here in first grade.